I thought weddings were supposed to be about love, unity, and celebration. I stood there in my groomsman suit, watching my older brother Derek marry the woman of his dreams, surrounded by 400 guests in a beautiful ballroom. For a moment, I believed this day might finally bring us closer together. But then he grabbed the microphone during his speech, looked straight at me with that smirk I had learned to fear, and said the words that would change everything. I never thought my own brother would humiliate me in front of 400 people. But when he did, I made sure everyone knew the truth. Before I tell you what happened that night, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments. If you have ever been publicly humiliated by someone you trusted, hit that like button right now. And subscribe, because this story gets intense, and you will not believe what I revealed when I finally took that microphone back from him. Trust me, you need to hear how this ended. My brother Derek and I grew up in the same house, but we might as well have lived in different worlds. He was the firstborn, the golden child who could do no wrong. I came along 3 years later, and from the moment I could understand words, I knew I was living in his shadow. Derek excelled at everything. He was the star quarterback in high school, got straight A's without trying, and had colleges fighting over him with scholarship offers. I was different. I preferred art class to football practice, spent my weekends with a camera instead of at parties, and dreamed of becoming a photographer rather than following the traditional path everyone expected. Our parents made the difference clear at every family dinner. They would spend an hour discussing Derek's latest achievement, his promotion at work, his new car, his perfect life. Then they would turn to me with forced smiles and ask when I planned to get a real job. I had just turned 25, running my own small photography and graphic design studio. The income was modest, but I loved what I did. I poured my heart into every project, stayed up late perfecting images, and slowly built a client base that appreciated my work. But to my family, I was just the son who had not figured his life out yet. Derek, on the other hand, had everything mapped out. At 30 years old, he worked as an engineer for a major tech company, drove a luxury sedan, and lived in a penthouse downtown. 6 months ago, he announced his engagement to Madison, a beautiful and accomplished lawyer from a wealthy family. The news sent our parents into a frenzy of joy. Finally, their perfect son was getting his perfect wedding. I congratulated Derek sincerely that Thanksgiving, genuinely happy for him, despite our complicated relationship. I still held on to hope that maybe, just maybe, this milestone would bring us closer. But Derek had other plans. As we sat around the dinner table that November evening, he raised his glass and said something that made my stomach turn. "Maybe watching my wedding will inspire you to get your life together, little brother." Everyone laughed. I forced myself to join in, but the words cut deeper than I wanted to admit. It was not the first comment like that, and it would not be the last. Over the following months, every family gathering included some snide remark about my career, my apartment, my single status. "Arthur is still playing with his camera," he would say, dismissively. At least one of us made Mom and Dad proud. I started avoiding family events. Each invitation felt like volunteering for another round of humiliation. Then 2 months before the wedding, Derek called with a surprise. He wanted me to be a groomsman. I was shocked. Despite everything, a small part of me felt touched. Maybe this was his way of reaching out, of showing he still cared about having his little brother by his side on the most important day of his life. I said yes immediately. I even started working on a special wedding gift, a handmade photo album filled with pictures from our childhood, back when things were simpler and we actually got along. I spent 3 weeks on it, carefully selecting and arranging each image, writing captions that captured our shared history. It was my piece, offering my way of saying I still believed in us. The bachelor party in Vegas should have been my first warning. Derek rented an enormous suite and invited 10 guys, including all the groomsmen and his closest friends. I tried my best to fit in, laughing at jokes I did not find funny and nursing drinks I did not really want. Then Derek got drunk. Really drunk. The kind of drunk where filters disappear and truth comes spilling out. He started telling stories about me, and not the fond, brotherly kind. My little brother still lives in a studio apartment at 25, he announced to the room. Can you believe that he calls himself an artist? Our parents call it unemployment. The guys laughed uncomfortably. Some looked at me with pity. My face burned red, but I stayed quiet, not wanting to ruin Derek's celebration. Then his best man, Craig, chimed in. At least Arthur showed up. We were worried he could not afford the flight. Derek threw his head back and laughed. Do not worry, I paid for it. Consider it charity. The words hit me like a physical blow. I mumbled something about not feeling well and left early, retreating to my hotel room where I called my best friend Lucas. You do not have to go to the wedding, Lucas said firmly. But I could not do that. He was still my brother. Surely he would apologize once he sobered up. He never did. 2 days before the wedding, at the rehearsal dinner, things got worse. 50 guests gathered at an upscale restaurant, families from both sides mixing and mingling. I wore my best suit, though it still looked cheap compared to what everyone else had on. My father stood up to give a speech, and I should have known what was coming. My pride and joy, he said, looking at Derek. Successful, responsible, everything a father could want in a son. Then his eyes found me across the table. And Arthur, well, he is here too. The awkward laughter that followed felt like needles in my skin. Madison's parents were not much better. When they asked what I did for a living, and I explained I was a photographer and graphic designer, her father responded with a dismissive, "Oh, how creative," before immediately changing the subject to talk about Derek's career prospects. I tried to pull Derek aside later that evening. Derek, can we talk? I feel like you have been treating me poorly, and I just want to understand why. He cut me off before I could finish. Not now, Arthur. This is my weekend. Do not make it about you. I stood there stunned as he walked away. Later, I overheard him talking to Craig near the bar. They did not see me standing just around the corner. Honestly, I only invited Arthur because Mom insisted, Derek said. He is such a disappointment. Craig laughed. Yeah, your parents must wonder where they went wrong with that one. I pressed myself against the wall, listening to every cruel word. My hands shook, my vision blurred, but I did not confront them, not yet. I went back to my hotel room and stared at the ceiling until dawn, wondering if I should even show up to the wedding at all. The morning of the ceremony, I woke up exhausted. My groomsman suit hung on the closet door, a reminder of the role I was expected to play. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Please be on your best behavior today. This is Derek's special day. Nothing about how I was feeling. Nothing asking if I was okay. Just a reminder to stay in line and not cause problems. I looked at myself in the mirror and made a decision. I would go. I would stand up there as his groomsman. But if Derek crossed the line one more time, I would not stay silent. I had spent my entire life being the understanding little brother, the one who took the hits and smiled through the pain. Maybe it was time that changed. The venue was stunning. An outdoor garden ceremony followed by a reception in a massive ballroom with crystal chandeliers and elegant decorations. 400 guests filled the space, more people than I had ever seen at a wedding. I stood with the other groomsmen watching Derek at the altar. He looked confident, almost smug. During a quiet moment before the ceremony started, I approached him with the photo album I had made. "This is for you and Madison," I said. Derek opened it, flipped through a few pages without really looking, and handed it back to me. "Thanks. Put it with the other gifts." No smile, no appreciation, just cold dismissal. I walked away feeling like the gift I had poured my heart into was worth less than nothing to him. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Madison looked radiant walking down the aisle. Vows were exchanged, rings were placed, and they were pronounced husband and wife. Everyone cheered. I clapped along, trying to feel happy for them despite the knot in my stomach. The reception began with dinner service champagne flowing freely and a dance floor that quickly filled with guests. I sat at the groomsmen table surrounded by Derek's friends who barely acknowledged my existence. I picked at my food and waited for the speeches to begin. The best man, Craig, went first. His speech was funny and heartwarming, full of stories about Derek's loyalty and kindness. The crowd loved it. Applause filled the room. Then Derek stood up. He took the microphone from the MC, and the room fell silent, everyone eager to hear what the groom had to say. I was not worried at first. This was his moment to thank everyone, to celebrate his new marriage, to be gracious. I should have known better. Derek started normally enough. He thanked everyone for coming. He thanked Madison's parents for raising such an incredible woman. He thanked our parents for their support. Then his eyes found me. "I also want to thank my groomsmen," he said, pausing for effect. "Especially my little brother Arthur." I sat up straighter, surprised to be mentioned. For a brief second, I thought maybe he was about to apologize, to finally acknowledge how he had been treating me. Instead, he smiled that cruel smile I knew too well. "Arthur is here tonight, and I have to say, he represents everything I was afraid of becoming." Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. I felt my chest tighten. Derek continued, his voice carrying across the ballroom with perfect clarity. "You see, in every family there is a golden child, and well, there is the damaged goods." Gasps erupted from several tables. I sat frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. "Arthur is 25, still figuring out his life," Derek went on. "Still living like a college kid, still taking photos for a living." He used air quotes around the word photos, his tone dripping with mockery. "My parents used to worry they failed with him," Derek said, his voice growing louder. "But then I realized he is just the family leftovers, the reminder of what happens when you do not apply yourself." Some drunk guests laughed. Most sat in uncomfortable silence. A few looked at me with pity. I felt 400 pairs of eyes burning into me. My face was on fire. My hands trembled in my lap. Derek raised his champagne glass high in the air. "So here is to Arthur. May you someday be half the man I am." Scattered, awkward applause followed. Derek sat down, looking satisfied with himself, like he had just delivered the speech of the century. I sat there for what felt like an eternity. Faces around me showed pity, embarrassment, secondhand shame. Some people whispered to each other. A few shook their heads in disapproval at Derek's cruelty. But nobody said anything. Nobody stood up for me. In that moment, every insult, every dismissive comment, every time I had been compared unfavorably to Derek came flooding back. The bachelor party, the rehearsal dinner, every family gathering where I was made to feel less than. Every time I swallowed my hurt and stayed quiet because I did not want to cause a scene. I realized something with crystal clarity. This would never stop unless I ended it. Right here, right now. I stood up slowly. My legs felt weak, but I forced them to carry me to the front of the room. Whispers grew louder. People looked confused. Derek watched me approach with that smug smirk still on his face. "Oh, little brother wants to say something," he said mockingly. "Actually, yes," I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. "I do." I took the microphone from his hand. He tried to grab it back, but I stepped away, putting distance between us. The room went completely silent. "Thank you, Derek." I began, my voice clear and calm despite the storm raging inside me. "For that interesting characterization." I paused, letting the words sink in. I was not planning to give a speech tonight, but since you have shared your thoughts about me with 400 people, I think it is only fair I share mine about you. Derek's smirk started to fade. I saw his jaw tighten. For those who do not know, Derek is my older brother, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our family. But what Derek did not mention is how he actually got here. I turned to face the crowd. Derek graduated top of his class in engineering. What he failed to mention is that I wrote half his senior year papers. Murmurs spread through the ballroom like wildfire. Derek's face went from smug to bright red in seconds. I was 15 years old and he begged me to help him because he said he would fail otherwise. I did it because he was my brother, because I loved him and wanted him to succeed. I paused, letting that sink in. And Derek has a wonderful job at Harrison Tech. Great salary, great benefits. What he did not tell anyone is that he got that position because our uncle sits on the board of directors, not through merit, not through hard work, through family connection. A connection, by the way, that I could have used too, but was never offered. The whispers grew louder. I saw Derek's friends shifting uncomfortably. Some of Madison's family members looked shocked. Then I turned to Madison. "I want to be respectful to you, Madison, because you deserve honesty. Did Derek tell you why he proposed when he did?" She looked at me with wide eyes, confusion written across her face. "6 months ago, Derek called me after drinking too much. He told me he felt pressured to propose because your father had made it clear that he expected a ring soon, especially since there were business connections at stake. He said he was not ready for marriage, but your family's wealth and influence made it worth it." Madison's face went pale. She turned to Derek. "Is that true?" she asked, her voice shaking. Derek stood up, stammering. "That is a complete lie. He is making it up because he is jealous." I looked at him sadly. "It is not a lie, Derek. You said those exact words to me on the phone. You said marrying into her family would open doors for your career. Everyone in this room deserves to know who you really are." I took a breath, feeling tears prick at my eyes but refusing to let them fall. "You called me damaged goods tonight. You called me family leftovers. But at least I am honest about who I am. I have never pretended to be something I am not. I have never used people for their connections. And I have never humiliated someone I claim to love in front of hundreds of people just to make myself feel superior." The ballroom erupted. Madison stood up, tears streaming down her face. She walked up to Derek and pulled off her wedding ring. "I cannot believe I almost married you," she said, her voice breaking. She threw the ring at his chest and walked out, her bridesmaids rushing after her. Madison's parents stood up, glaring at Derek with fury, and followed their daughter. Other guests started whispering loudly, some pulling out their phones. Derek tried to grab my arm. "You just ruined my life," he hissed. "No," I said quietly. "I just told the truth. You ruined your own life by being cruel to everyone around you." I set the microphone down on the nearest table and walked toward the exit. As I passed through the ballroom, something unexpected happened. A few guests, the ones who had looked uncomfortable during Derek's speech, started clapping. It began as a slow clap from one older gentleman, then a few others joined in. Not everyone. maybe 20 people out of 400. But it was enough. I did not look back at Derek. I did not wait to see what happened next. I just walked out into the cool night air, my heart pounding, my hands shaking, but my conscience finally clear. Lucas found me in the parking lot 10 minutes later. "Dude," he said, slightly out of breath, "that was the most incredible thing I have ever seen. Are you okay?" I nodded slowly, still processing what I had just done. For the first time in my life, I finally stood up for myself. We stood there in silence for a moment, then Lucas clapped me on the shoulder. "Come on, let me buy you a drink. You deserve it." As we walked away from the venue, I felt something I had not felt in years. Relief, freedom, the weight of always trying to be good enough for people who would never see my worth had finally lifted. That night back in my hotel room, I sat in the dark still wearing my groomsman suit. I took it off slowly, hung it up, and just sat on the edge of the bed in silence. My emotions were all over the place. Relief that I had finally stood up for myself. Guilt for ruining Derek's wedding. Sadness that it had come to this. But underneath it all, a strange sense of peace. My phone started buzzing nonstop with texts from relatives. Some were angry. "How could you ruin Derek's wedding like that one aunt wrote? You should be ashamed of yourself." Others were surprisingly supportive. "He had that coming for years," my cousin texted. "I am proud of you for finally saying something." I turned my phone off entirely. I did not want to deal with any of it. Not yet. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling, replaying the entire evening in my mind. I thought about the look on Derek's face when I revealed the truth about his college papers, about his job, about his real feelings toward Madison. I thought about Madison's devastated expression as she pulled off her ring. I wished it had not happened this way. I wished my brother had been a better person. But I could not let his cruelty continue. I could not spend another moment being his punching bag. For the first time in months, I fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. The following days were chaos. My parents called repeatedly. My father was furious. "You embarrassed the entire family," he shouted over the phone. "Do you have any idea what you have done?" My mother cried. "Why could you not just let it go?" "Arthur, why did you have to make a scene?" I listened to them for a few minutes, then I said something I had never said before. "Because he has been humiliating me for years, and neither of you ever stopped him. You enabled his cruelty. You made me feel worthless my entire life. I am done accepting that treatment." There was silence on the other end. They did not know how to respond. Derek sent me a barrage of angry messages. Madison had officially called off the wedding. The marriage was annulled before it even began. She had broken up with him completely and moved out of his penthouse. Derek blamed everything on me. "You destroyed my life," he wrote. "I will never forgive you for this." I blocked his number. I did not need his poison in my life anymore. But then something unexpected happened. My uncle, the one who sat on the Harrison Tech board, called me. "I heard what happened at the wedding," he said carefully. "I had no idea Derek had been treating you that way all these years. I am sorry I never saw it." He paused. "I know you run your own photography business, but if you are ever interested in exploring other opportunities, I know some people at a different company who are looking for someone with your creative skills." It was not charity, it was genuine. I thanked him and said I would think about it. Over the next few weeks, I noticed that a video of my speech had gone semi-viral among the guest circles and their social networks. The comments were mixed. Some people thought I was cruel for exposing Derek so publicly. Others said he deserved it after what he said about me. I did not engage with any of it. I deleted my social media apps for a while, and just focused on living my life. I started seeing a therapist, something I probably should have done years ago. We talked about my childhood, the constant comparisons, the feeling of never being good enough. She helped me understand that I had been the scapegoat in a toxic family dynamic and that standing up for myself was not wrong. It was necessary. I poured myself into my work and my friendships. Lucas remained my loyal best friend, checking in on me regularly and making sure I was okay. I joined a local creative community and started attending art shows and photography exhibits. I met people who actually valued my work, who saw my photography as real art rather than just a hobby. For the first time, I felt like I belonged somewhere. My business started growing too. A local magazine featured my work in an article about up-and-coming artists in the city. That led to bigger clients and more interesting projects. I finally felt proud of what I was building. 6 months after the wedding, my life looked completely different. I had minimal contact with my parents. We were in family therapy, which was their idea after they realized how damaged our relationship had become. Progress was slow, but at least we were trying. Derek had not apologized. He still blamed me for everything. I had accepted that he might never take responsibility for his actions. That was his choice, and I could not control it. But I could control how much space I gave him in my life, which was now very little. One afternoon, I received a message from an unexpected source. It was Madison. "I know this might be strange," she wrote, "but I wanted to thank you. You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. I am seeing someone new now, someone who actually respects and values me. I hope you are doing well." I smiled and sent her a message back, genuinely happy that she had found someone better. As I sat in my studio one evening, editing photos from a recent shoot, I reflected on everything that had happened. I no longer defined myself by my family's opinion. I had set healthy boundaries and surrounded myself with people who appreciated me for who I was. I was dating someone wonderful who loved my passion for photography and never once made me feel less than. My career was thriving in ways I had only dreamed of before. Most importantly, I had finally learned a lesson that changed everything. Standing up for yourself is not cruel, it is necessary. Sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones closest to you, the ones who are supposed to love and protect you. But you are not obligated to accept mistreatment even from family, especially from family. Blood does not give anyone the right to diminish your worth or treat you as less than human. I do not know if Derek will ever understand what he did to me over the years. I do not know if my parents will ever fully acknowledge their role in our broken relationship. But I finally understand something far more important. I am not damaged goods. I am not family leftovers. I am just Arthur. And that is more than enough. I walked over to my studio window and looked out at the sunset painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. My camera sat on the desk beside me, ready for tomorrow's shoot. For the first time in my life, I felt genuinely at peace. Not because my family had changed, not because Derek had apologized, but because I had finally chosen myself. I had finally recognized my own worth. And that freedom was worth more than any family approval could ever be. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to stand up to a family member who treated you poorly? How did you handle it? Drop your answer in the comments below, because I read every single one. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more real-life stories about finding your strength and setting boundaries. And share this video with someone who needs to hear that they are enough, exactly as they are. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that your voice matters, your truth matters, and you deserve to be treated with respect. Stay strong, stay true to yourself, and remember that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply refuse to be small for people who want to keep you down. Until next time, take care of yourselves.